I'm Maria Gurevich. I'm the owner of Right Up Your Alley Writing Schools. I've been teaching writing for the past 20 years at various, I've done corporate training, I've done college, professional writing, and school. I'm currently running my own writing schools where we teach anything from beginner reading to advanced writing to high school and university students. That's my main work. And I teach grade 9 and 10 English in a Toronto high school. And we also teach public speaking, and we help students apply to university and fill out university applications, supplementary applications for universities in Canada, United States, and Europe. My own experience with writing and professions in writing, I also do on the side, I do a little bit of my own writing. I do a little bit of copywriting and ghostwriting, and I'll talk about those and what they mean in a second. The main topic of today is what can you do if you're really good at writing and you enjoy writing? Are there jobs? Yes, there are. There are a lot of jobs because writing and a degree in English was very, very unpopular in the last 30 years. And it's only now that we're realizing that you can't really do anything without solid writing skills. But because these skills were not very popular, we have a lot of professionals who can't do their own writing. And we have a lot of companies who have a lot of writing they put out there on the internet, a lot of documentation, and not too many people capable of writing these documents and these copies. And because there's so many people who can't write very well because it was a skill that was overlooked, there are a lot of jobs in writing right now. I'll start with the most popular ones, and I'll start sort of by what you can do with a degree if you have a BA and you specialized in English. The most popular thing to do is to go to law school. With an English degree, it'll be easy to pass the acceptance test, the LSAT, and it'll be easy to study in law school. The only caution against making English your first degree on your way to law school would be if you want to specialize in the kind of law that requires you to have a science degree. If you're specializing in any kind of medical law where doctors get sued by their patients for doing something wrong, misdiagnosis, then you do need a degree in science. If you're specializing in construction law, like a bridge falls down and a company gets sued, then you do need a degree in physics and engineering. Any other kind of law that doesn't require you to have a science degree, you could get in with a degree in English. Other things that you could do, other schools that you can enter is journalism school, counseling, therapy. All of those additional degrees can be easily obtained with when your first 3 years gives you a BA with English. That's as far as applying to other schools. As far as professions, there's the new professions that are coming out right now that didn't exist 20 years ago are copywriting and ghostwriting. Those are the two big ones. And the difference is copywriting is you're writing other people's blogs, you're writing text for other people's writing, for other people's websites, for companies, and you're writing any kind of marketing materials. And a lot of people think that those jobs are freelance jobs. They're not. There are a lot of marketing agencies that are looking for copywriters that will hire full-time copywriters. You don't have to go out and look for your own clients, but you can if you have to. If you want to work for yourself, you can do that with copywriting, but there's a lot of marketing agencies that will hire full-time writers with a degree in English. Ghostwriting is quite a bit more money than copywriting. Any ideas what ghostwriting is? It's not writing ghost stories. So as I said, copywriting, you write for other people and your writing shows up on their website and you're a legitimate contractor. Ghostwriting is you write for other people, but they put their own name on your writing, and it's very important that the writing is presented as their writing. Interesting contracts that I have done, and I'll give you an example. For example, copywriting. I was working with a company that introduced me to a whole new field I didn't even know existed, and it was the field of computer forensics. Right? You understand what that is. When there's a crime is committed, the suspect's computers are taken away, and whatever was erased from those computers, whatever files the suspect was trying to hide, are restored, or at least they try to prove that some files were erased. And they needed a writer to explain. So each time they take a computer, and whatever they do needs to be written down step by step so that they could present it in court. What they did with the computer and how they came up with whatever materials they came up with. So that involved me going into the computer forensics lab, watching them, and they would talk me through everything they were doing. So the forensic specialist would be working and like saying out loud everything he does, and I'd write it down, and then I'd put it nicely in paragraph form, and I'd put my name on the copy, or we would put the company name on the copy, and that went to court, and it was fine. Ghostwriting is different from that because it's very important to the client that his name goes on the writing. And I'll give an example. For example, and I've worked with medical professionals and doctors who are very busy saving lives, and writing is not their priority, but they want to participate in an international conference. They want to go and they want to present their findings. Maybe they've discovered a new method. Maybe they want to share their surgical techniques with the world. In order to participate, they need to submit a written article explaining their findings, explaining what their presentation is about. They need to prepare a PowerPoint for that presentation, and obviously they don't have time for that. So they send me their point form, or we talk on the phone. They tell me what the article needs to include. I ask any questions that need to be asked. I write the article, I send it to them, and I don't exist. That's why it's called ghostwriting. The doctor or whoever the professional is will put their name on it, and it's their article. Depending on the clients you work with, it can be a very, very lucrative profession. I've also worked with a high-end real estate agent, and if any of you are real estate agents or you know real estate agents, you also know that they don't have time to write books. But this particular real estate agent, she was working with developers, and she was really high up there. She needed to promote herself, and she needed to write a book because she wanted to put it on her website that she is a published author who has written books about commercial real estate. Of course, she doesn't have time to write a book. Someone else writes the book for her, and she puts her name on it. She becomes a published author. That's what ghostwriters do. You do have to have a portfolio to get into that, but not necessarily a degree. In all my 20 years of doing things like this, no one has ever asked me if I actually have an English degree, but they do ask for your portfolio. So they want to see what other stuff you've written and preparing your portfolio. Writers, in order to make money, the only way to make money with writing is to do other people's writing for them. If you want to do your own writing, there is no guarantee that anyone will want to pay for that. And we all know that a lot of world's famous writers had other jobs. And I have a little quiz for you today. Hopefully I can share it. Okay, do you see what I'm sharing? Trivia? Can you see it?
Yes, we can see that.
You can see it? Okay, wonderful, thank you. Is it big enough? You can make it bigger on your screens. Okay, so these are some of the world-renowned authors and their day jobs. The jobs that they actually did that made them money before they became famous authors. There's 4, this is like a multiple choice. There's 4 options if you can guess. Take a wild guess, or maybe you already know, and then I'll tell you the right answer. So Agatha Christie, was she a school teacher, a nurse, a pharmacy assistant, or a journalist?
We have 2 options here. So my daughter thinks she was a journalist. I think she was a school teacher.
Any other answers? Agatha Christie was a pharmacy assistant. Okay, Charles Dickens, was he a legal clerk, a doctor, a police officer, or a museum employee?
I think he was a museum employee.
Museum employee, any other options?
I would go with legal clerk.
That's correct. He was a legal clerk. Fyodor Dostoevsky, teacher, engineer, sales manager, pharmacist.
Teacher?
Any other options? He was an engineer, both him and his brother. And he never wanted to be an engineer, but his parents made him go. And he graduated and he worked as an engineer for a few years before he started writing. Arthur Conan Doyle, the author of Sherlock Holmes mysteries. Surgeon, interior designer, soldier, or detective?
Was he a soldier?
Anyone else?
Not an interior designer for sure.
Not an interior designer, and not a detective, because that would be too easy, right? He was a surgeon. He was a surgeon, but he was a military surgeon. He worked on military ships, but when he started writing Sherlock Holmes, he had his own medical practice in London.
Under Dr. Watson name, I believe.
Yes, Dr. Watson. Okay. Anton Chekhov. I don't think there's an E at the end of his name. Doctor, ticket officer, school teacher, theater manager.
Doctor?
He was a doctor. And the last one, J.K. Rowling, the author of Harry Potter. Secretary, fashion model, school teacher, taxi driver.
Was she a secretary?
She was a secretary. Okay, you guys did great. I'll stop sharing for now, but I do have another exercise when we get to journalism. So point here was if you want to do other people's writing for them, there's a lot of jobs out there. If you want to do your own writing, there's no guarantees that anyone will pay for that. Technical writing and procedural writing, all those manuals, every company has a manual. Even stores have to have manuals. They're required by law to, even a little store, you're required by law to have a manual that outlines your procedures, your return policies, all your customer service procedures. Someone needs to come in and write that. Again, not a freelance job. There's agencies who hire people to do this full time. You don't have to look for your own clients for technical writing and for procedural writing. Technical writing, an example would be very similar to my job at the computer forensics firm, where you watch people do their jobs and you write down every step. Or with instructions that come with a product. How to assemble it, how to use it, what to do if it's not working, how to troubleshoot. Those booklets of instructions that you get when you buy a washing machine, for example, that's a technical writer working on that. Editor. All of those writing professions mentioned above, including writers who write books, they all need editors. Someone needs to look over your writing, find little mistakes, find things that don't work, find things that are not going to impress your audience, mark them up and give it back to you, have you rewrite it, give it back to the editor. A lot of work. Lobbyists. You don't need a political science degree to be a lobbyist, to lobby the government for laws that your clients, and your clients are big corporations. So a corporation will hire a lobbyist, an interest group will hire a lobbyist to write and present and talk to the government to push certain laws and regulations in favor of the client company or the client interest groups. Anything to do with theater, television, broadcasting, a degree in English will get you there. A critic, a theater critic, a food critic, a book critic. So for those though, you do have to usually, especially for as a book critic, you are a freelancer, you have to look for your own contracts every time. Two jobs I haven't covered are teaching. A lot of my clients who love to write, they say, a lot of my students who are good at writing, they say, I'm going to be a teacher. I'm going to be an English teacher. I'm an English teacher. There is no writing. There's a lot of teaching. There's a lot of marking. There's a lot of editing. There's a lot of emailing back and forth, lesson planning, talking to parents, zero writing. So if you want to go into teaching for the love of teaching, not for the love of writing. That's not a writing job, teaching English. Journalism. Journalism is a big topic. When I got my first degree and it was obvious that writing was going to be my path, journalism was the first thing that I considered because it's such an obvious thing. Why not go into journalism? If you write, and you can look for stories and you can tell stories, and there's so many different newspapers. And I went and I spoke to journalist professors at U of T. I spoke to journalists who were working in newspapers. I went to networking events. I made friends. Some of them I'm still in touch with. My writing teachers who were journalists. And they all said the same thing. And this was back 20 years ago. And they all said the same thing. If you want to write, study something else, find a niche, and then write about that. So if you look into the most popular financial columns, for example, business reviews in even in the Economist or Financial Post, people who write those columns, they have a degree in finance. They do not have a degree in journalism. Health columns, relationship columns, those are all written by people who have degrees in psychology, degrees in kinesiology, maybe even medical degrees. You don't need a degree in journalism to be a published journalist. What you do need is you need a degree in something else. You need a niche and then write about that. I was told this 20 years ago. Now, in the past few years, a lot of those journalists that I have looked up to for 20 years have lost their jobs. A lot of the popular ones, Margaret Wente, Russell Smith, a lot of David Eddy, even, who had an advice column in the Globe and Mail, they're now freelancers. They write articles, they email an editor of a magazine, they email their article and they say, would you be interested in this article? And then it either gets published or it gets rejected. There is very little full-time jobs in journalism right now. Part of the reason is that before, when you published, when you wrote for a newspaper, the newspaper got distributed, your article was in that newspaper regardless of how many people read it. What articles get read now, and how do we know who reads your article and who doesn't? It's all by clicks, right? If people are clicking on the title, the article gets read. If people are not clicking, the article goes lower and lower, lower in the sequence. It never gets picked up. You don't get read. Your boss knows about it because the clicks are easy to follow. And that's how a lot of great journalists are now forced to do ghostwriting, for example. It's not that they're unemployed, they're just not doing journalism. So finding a niche, writing about that, approaching different publications. A lot of publications, I'm sure you've all read something in Huffington Post, because that comes up a lot, right? Familiar with Huffington Post articles? They don't pay their writers at all. You write an article, you pitch it to them, they publish it, you're happy that you can put on your resume that your article was published by Huffington Post. There's no money at all. They don't have anyone on staff who wants to pay for articles at all. However, the one thing with journalism, and the last exercise that I have for you today, is how do you make something interesting? How do you make sure that your article is read and that what you're writing about is relevant to a lot of people? There's two main things. One is the way the brain works and how the brain decides what's interesting and what's boring. Do you know? Does anyone want to take a guess what our brain sees as interesting and what our brain sees as boring? In terms of writing, in terms of pictures. Okay, so anything that triggers the brain's survival instinct, anything that is relevant to our survival. So if you had two pictures in front of you or two titles in front of you, two newspaper titles, the one that triggers survival would get the most attention. Survival instinct. Survival instinct depends on many, many things. So anything that relates to food would be more relevant because it's your survival. Anything that relates to danger, anything that relates to health, anything that relates to water and nature gets a lot of attention because our survival depends on it. Children and babies and anything that has to do with that. So you have to figure out a way to get your writing noticed. You have to figure out a way to trigger the brain's survival instinct. And this is something that takes quite a bit of learning to do. And another thing is to have a big issue in your story. And with a big issue, I'm going to show you a few pictures and then you tell me what the big issue is. And I'll give you an example of what I mean with a big issue. For example, if I'm reporting from a news reporter and I'm a little local news reporter because I just finished school and I'm just starting out in some little local, tiny, tiny small town. And I'm reporting on a car accident that happened at an intersection just outside of town. How can I make it relevant to people? It's a small intersection, it's outside of town, it doesn't create a lot of traffic. Nobody died. Cars got wrecked. Most of my audience don't know the people involved. Most of my audience never drive that way. How do I make it relevant? How do I add an issue to make people care about it and to activate their survival instinct? Here, this is the first picture. Car accident happened at this intersection. Nobody cares. My story is boring. Unless I find a big issue and relate my story to everyone. What could the big issue be in this picture? How can I make the story relevant to everyone? Any ideas? Okay.
Ну, я бы начала с того, что, наверное, несколько людей просто чудом избежали смертельной опасности, а потом мелким шрифтом, что случилось.
Okay, that triggers the survival instinct because it's about death, possible death, escaping death. Okay, I could make it about, but a bigger issue is something that involves absolutely everyone. I could make it about black ice. And even if the accident was not actually caused by black ice, I could say black ice almost killed 2 drivers. And black ice, anyone who lives in Canada could easily become a victim of black ice and snowy driving conditions, right? Or low visibility because of a snowstorm. All of a sudden that becomes a big issue because that's relevant to everybody who lives here in the winter, right? So those are big issues, things about a small incident or a small occurrence, but it relates to something big that relates to all of us. I always tell my students, your writing cannot be a bubble that's just floating in the air all by itself, separate from everything. Think of your writing as an octopus that spreads its tentacles to other people and other issues in every home, right? Snow, black ice, drunk driving. Drunk driving is suspected in a nearly fatal car accident. That could happen to any of us. Anybody could be on the road with a drunk driver and not know about it. Those would be big issues. Winter tires. Okay, next picture. Here. What could be a big issue in this story?
С подсказки
Someone
моей
kid fell asleep.
говорю, что это drug issue.
Okay. Could be drug abuse, could be related to legalization. What else? What else makes teenagers fall asleep during the day? If they're not on drugs. Playing video games, unlimited use of technology, right? Because they're on their phones at night. All of a sudden, anyone who has children, this kid sleeping at his desk becomes relevant because it's no longer just a kid sleeping at his desk. It's a big, big issue of drug abuse, or it's a big, big issue of video games and technology and having no control over when you stop playing and you go to bed. All of a sudden, we've got a big issue and it's relevant to everybody. Or we could go the other way and we could make it about fatigue caused by online learning because you're in front of a screen the whole day. And that's a big issue relevant to anybody who has kids learning from home these days. And I can even connect it to this picture because if he's like this and then he gets behind the wheel. So student fatigue causing nearly fatal car accidents. All of a sudden I've got my stories connected. Okay. This seems fairly innocent. Big issues. So the weather is nice and people are having picnics.
Without sunscreen.
Sunscreen. Excellent. It could be a big issue. Sunscreen and all the health issues that it causes. What else? Littering and pollution. Are they going to clean up after themselves, or are they going to leave that bottle on the ground, or are they going to throw it in the lake and pollute our lakes and ruin our beautiful environment? That could be a big issue. Okay, there's another one. How about this one? Polar bears. We don't live in Churchill.
Global warming.
Global warming. Absolutely, global warming. They're losing their habitat. Snow is melting. They have nowhere to live, so they come out into towns, rummage through people's garbage. Global warming, loss of habitat. Possibly becoming a danger to society. Water levels rising. And the last one, this one here, and this could be, oh, where did it go? Here. Oh, it's not the last one. Okay. This one here. No one wants to talk to me about real estate prices? Land developments, this could be an environmental issue for, we're taking habitat away from animals. Building, construction, noise pollution, people who are living in the area close to this noise are probably unhappy. This could be a real estate issue, how the price of housing is going up and we won't be able to afford, or other certain people in our society won't be able to afford housing. We can talk about construction workers' safety, insurance issues with their safety. Again, we could talk about pollution. This is causing a lot of pollution, more traffic, more people moving into the city. Lots of big issues in this story. And finally, we've got a cute little squirrel crossing the road. Anything here? Big issues. I'd say loss of habitat would be one. Because it's on the road, because its home has been taken over by people. Trees have been cut. It's got nowhere to go. Traffic, again, it could cause traffic issues. Or animal control if there's too many of them. Disease control if they've been spreading any kind of a dangerous disease would be another issue. I'll stop sharing now. Okay. So basically with journalism, you've got to look for a big issue in every story and connect that story to as many people as possible. So make the issue something universal. In addition to making your title grab attention by triggering survival instinct in the title. But when I was choosing my profession and my way to go with English, I was told not to go to journalism school because you don't need a degree in journalism to write. It's better to have a different profession. And today we've looked at a list of famous writers, all of whom had professions outside of writing. And it inspires you and gives you something to write about. I think that pretty much covers everything that I've wanted to talk about for today. Any questions? I'll be happy to answer questions regarding jobs, regarding the type of writing you have to do, regarding ways to improve your writing, anything writing related.
I'm just wondering if you might help me. So several years ago, I took business writing course, and we were taught a formula. So you should put your sentence in that formula, and I don't remember. So there's a particular number, so range of numbers, and if you sentence in that range, so this sentence will be well taken by the recipient. So do you know
Like
what
the number of words in a sentence?
I don't remember that. So I was trying to find it. I was trying to Google it. I cannot find it.
The maximum number of words recommended in a sentence is 28. Anything more than that is hard to read.
It's like Tolstoy.
28.
20. It's not too long.
Sorry?
Sounds like too long.
That's the maximum. That's the maximum. Within a paragraph, it's recommended that you balance the number of words per sentence so that you have your longest sentence will be 28, but your longer sentences are interrupted with shorter sentences with medium length sentences. So you don't want your paragraph to be 28, 25, 27, 20, 28, 27. You want it to be 7, 14, 5, 10, 20, 11, 28, 17. You want the number of words per sentence to be broken up. You don't want it to be, you don't want all your sentences to be the same length. Whether all your sentences are in the 20s, it sounds long and confusing, the entire paragraph will. And if all your sentences are under 10 words, it'll sound choppy. And if all your sentences are between 15 and 18, it'll sound mundane. So you do want a good balance so that your length is all over the place.
Thank you.
There's tricks to do that as well. If you want to build up to something, then you have a longer sentence building up to the most important sentence. And then the most important one is a really short one at the end of a longer sentence, for example, would be very effective. I'm not sure if I've answered your question fully.
Not exactly, but that was interesting too. Thank you.
Was that not exactly what you were asking?
There was exact formula, so it was looking like math formula.
For the number of sentences or for the number of words in a sentence, or was it for something else?
For the number of words in the sentence, for the number of letters in the words, so
Oh.
something like that. So it's like so you get an average of the sentence from that formula, and again, I can barely remember.
That's interesting. That must be something because I have a lot of books on business writing and I've never come across anything that specific.
It was Mr. Pasternak. He is not related to that Pasternak.
Not related to that past man.
He is local Pasternak. So
Was that the teacher or was that the author of the book?
he is author of that course.
The author of the course. Okay. And there's no videos of his course or anything like that?
No, it was done through my corporation. So they
Okay.
just hired him for the employees.
Okay, so maybe that was something that he came up with and that's his selling point that you can only get from him. Because I haven't come across anything that specific. Any other questions?
Можно по-русски?
Можно.
А вам помогало ваше, ну, как минимум, двуязычие в вашей карьере?
Нет, не думаю. Не думаю. Я не совсем двуязычная, потому что я выросла в Брамптоне. И я никогда не училась, ну, я училась до 4-5 класса в России, поэтому не могу сказать, что я, то есть такие тексты, которые сложные, которые я пишу на английском, я на русском даже прочитать не смогу. Поэтому не знаю, насколько меня можно назвать двуязычной. Наверное, помогло в том плане, что я читаю на 2 языках, и если мне нужно сделать какой-то research, я всегда I'll Google it in English and then I'll Google it in Russian and I get twice the amount of information and sometimes it's completely different information and that helps for research purposes. В жизни помогло, но вот так именно в карьере я не думаю. Лично мне.
Спасибо.
Я думаю, в других карьерах, наверное, это более полезно. But it's a good question. Now it got me. I never thought about it.
Мария, можно на минуточку? Я
Да,
просто по этому поводу. У меня парень знакомый сейчас из Торонто, уехал, вернулся обратно в Израиль, там выучился на преподавателя английского, и ему это очень помогает, потому что он теперь ездит по всему миру, он знает и русский, и английский сюда, он приехал подростком в 14-15 лет, вернулся обратно туда, и русский язык, и иврит ему теперь по всему миру очень помогает.
По всему миру, да.
Поскольку он общается с разными аудиториями.
По всему
И
миру есть...
теперь он начинает преподавать. То есть в разных комьюнити он может начинать себе найти учеников и так далее. Спасибо.
Да, если работать по всему миру, то язык однозначно помогает. Даже никаких сомнений. Я просто никогда не пробовала.
Мария, можно следующий вопрос?
Да, конечно.
Ну, любой язык начинается с грамматики, да, с грамотности, с грамматики. Как учить грамматику, если в школе она здесь не дается в большинстве случаев?
Это очень сложно. Она действительно в школе не дается. И этот вопрос мне задают мои ученики постоянно. Когда я начинаю 12-классникам объяснять, как надо поставить apostrophe,
Ого.
они на меня смотрят и спрашивают, so how do other kids know this? Kids who don't have a tutor, how do they know this? Ну, самый простой ответ, наверное, посмотреть видео в YouTube, и там объяснят, где надо ставить запятую, где надо ставить. Я понимаю, что это ужасно, я не согласна с тем, что этого не учат. Я стараюсь это компенсировать для своих учеников, но я действительно не знаю, как по-другому. То есть ребенка 6-7 класса очень трудно заставить взять книжку, и мало кто из них будет сам сидеть и искать в интернете, где ему ставить запятые, если в школе этого не требуют. Проблема в том, что high school это требует.
Мы заметили.
Вот. И earlier schools этого не учат. И университеты говорят о том, что дети приходят даже with university English in high school is not university English for university. Это действительно большая проблема, и я очень надеюсь, что наша система образования ее решит и вернет грамматику. Когда я здесь училась в школе, это были 90-е годы, у нас много было грамматики, и в high school было много грамматики, нам давали все эти sheets, worksheets with commas and apostrophes and semicolons and colons and hyphens. We did a lot of that in English class in grade 9 and 10, but this was in the 90s and I don't know. And they don't do it anymore. Some teachers do, but it really depends on the teacher if you want to do it or not.
Да, это так. Нету систематичного подхода, но действительно какие-то отдельные учителя в каких-то отдельных случаях что-то презентуют. Да, я согласна.
Да, этого нету, потому что был какой-то, опять же, research, кто-то где-то высказался, что это все должно прийти с чтением. Вот ребенок читает, он видит, где там стоят запятые, как-то там оно у него в голове оседает, вот как-то там.
Не у всех.
Ни у кого.
Ясно.
Ни у
Удивительно.
кого.
Мгм.
Вот.
Хорошо, спасибо. Ну,
Я
понятно.
не сказала бы, может быть, что прям с этого начинается, особенно когда мы учим иностранные языки.
Мгм.
Иностранные все-таки начинаются со словарного запаса. Если сразу отпугнуть ученика грамматикой,
Мгм.
он может дальше нее и никуда не уйти. Но родной язык, в котором ребенок вырос и учится в школе, конечно, без грамматики никуда. После, там, я считаю, что дальше 6 класса, ну совсем.
Что вы думаете по поводу приложений? Потому что сейчас я, честно говоря, давно не видела ребенка, который писал бы что-то рукой. В основном все печатается, и сейчас очень много всяких приложений, компьютер, application на телефон, которые выправляют и грамматику, и пунктуацию.
На них не всегда можно положиться. Во-первых, потому что для того, чтобы приложение поняло, о чем вы хотите сказать, вы уже должны хорошо сформулировать свою мысль. Оно не всегда может понять, о чем речь. Иногда оно дает неправильные. У него свои алгоритмы. Иногда оно дает неправильные suggestions. Иногда оно подчеркивает, что здесь что-то неправильно. И если ребенок не знает грамматики и правил, не знает, то он не знает, почему ему это подчеркнули. Но в любом случае, когда эти правила есть, и они есть в голове, то быстрее гораздо сразу написать правильнее, чем потом возвращаться и думать, а почему у меня приложение вот это вот подчеркнуло. Есть приложения, которые следующее слово выдают. Я когда в телефоне начинаю печатать, он мне выдает следующее слово.
Ну да, сейчас Gmail это ввел, они такое ощущение, что они лучше знают вообще, что я должна писать, и как с кем общаться, и вообще как свою жизнь строить.
Ну, это it will only take you this far. Если вы пишете одно какое-то предложение, 2 коротенькие email можно, но чтобы что-то хорошее написать, это не работает. Но дети, многие в это верят. И они уверены, что если им приложение нигде ничего красненьким не подчеркнуло и нигде ничего не исправило, значит, они все хорошо написали. И потом сдают это учителю. В плане писать рукой. Ну, как учитель я могу сказать сразу, что это очень сложно читать. И, конечно, легче читать и проверять напечатанные работы. Как бывшая школьница, я могу сказать, что лично я злоупотребляла тем, что мы писали ручкой, и если не знала точно, как пишется слово, какими-то каракулями делала так, чтобы учитель не мог мне засчитать это как ошибку, или писала очень мелко, рассчитывая на то, что она не будет это читать и просто поставит мне хорошую оценку, потому что я хорошо себя веду на уроках, и это тоже иногда срабатывало, то есть там... Но все исследования указывают на то, что когда мы пишем от руки, мы вообще лучше запоминаем и лучше воспринимаем материал, потому что это другой processing, это другой вид information processing, чем когда мы печатаем руками. И для ребенка, и для запоминания материала это гораздо лучше. И в университетах это очень, об этом много говорят, и профессора говорят об этом, что лекции надо записывать рукой. И даже некоторые не разрешают лаптопы. И ученики, которые стараются хорошо учиться и запоминать, пишут и переписывают от руки конспекты от руки. У них очень популярно, у моих студентов, которые в университетах, cue cards, на которых они мелким шрифтом пишут, потому что это помогает запомнить. Но это уже отдельная наука, кстати, поэтому тоже можно было бы интересно сделать встречу именно как правильно читать так, чтобы и записывать, так, чтобы запоминать, так, чтобы легче найти. Это интересная тема.
Спасибо большое за встречу. Было очень интересно. Мы, к сожалению, должны сейчас отключаться.
Ну да, уже 9.
Да.
Завтра идем в школу.
Спасибо большое. Всего хорошего.
Большое спасибо.
Всего хорошего. До
И
свидания.
вам тоже. Спасибо.
Татьяна, спасибо огромное. Огромное спасибо, Татьяна, мне очень понравилось.
Спасибо, я вижу по лицу, Мария, что понравилось. Такой живой диалог, да? Вообще, Нина умница, она очень хорошие вопросы всегда задает. Кстати, они замечательные ребята из Альберты. Вот.
Ага.
Но вас я хотела прежде всего поблагодарить. Спасибо огромнейшее за ваше время. Я прошу прощения там за несколько минут задержки. Я не знаю, что было технически, что-то не то. У меня забыли ребенка до 9 вечера. Я металась между кастрюлей с борщом, ребенком, этим зумом. Выловила Сережу с урока. Ну, в общем, как обычно, наши женские вот эти рабочие дела. Вот, спасибо вам огромнейшее. Как всегда, очень интересно. И вот эта презентация замечательная, всегда очень увлекательна. Вы свой предмет подаете, любя.
Спасибо большое.
Видео записалось, я его отреставрирую, где надо отрежу, где надо приклею. Великолепно выглядите. Всем хорошего здоровья и вот веселого настроения, такой же ослепительной улыбки нам всем, как у Марии.
Спасибо большое, Тань. Спасибо. Это реакция на вас, честно скажу.
Да, до новых встреч.
Мало поводов.
Я надеюсь, что вы подзарядились от нас. Если кто-то меня еще слушает, я не знаю. Я посмотрю.
Я подзарядилась. Я однозначно подзарядилась.
Да.
И готова подзаряжаться дальше.
Кто-то меня еще слушает, я могу сказать, кроме спасибо Марии, что 14 февраля у нас Очередная игра Brain Master Combat. Мы путешествуем по Китаю на русском и английском. И будут еще встречи по профориентации, и будет интересная встреча для детей. Одна женщина-учитель во время карантина написала книгу развивающую и так далее. То есть мы живем, жизнь течет и продолжает.
Здорово. А можно
Спасибо
просто прийти на игру, просто посмотреть?
Можно было бы, если бы мы были в зале, у нас сидело всегда очень много народу, по 150 человек, по 100 детей, 50 родителей, 60 и больше. Но как-то вот в интернете такая интимная обстановка, я просто всех лица хочу видеть, а поскольку дети последние игры играют командами даже с разных телефонов и с разных компьютеров, там получается окошек больше, чем команд. А мне нужна вот эта связь обратная, поэтому меня, конечно, просятся люди, но я пока не разрешаю.
Пока нету возможности.
Да, простите.
Ничего
Со
страшного.
стороны смотреть пока мы как бы не даем. Поскольку, ну, это домашняя обстановка, кто-то привык как бы себя показывать, а кто-то нет.
Ну да.
Вот, поэтому я извиняюсь.
Хорошо. Будем
Спасибо огромнейшее. Спасибо.
Спасибо большое. Всего доброго, Татьяна.
Я поставлю видео, как только его обработаю. Спасибо. Берегите себя все. Всего самого доброго.
Всего хорошего. До свидания.
Сыночка, я тебе сделала ужин, иди сюда. Глеб, слышишь, да? Глебушка. Глеб, ты идешь или нет, а? Глеб, сколько тебя звать, а? 10-й час уже. Глебушка, 10-й час, дорогой мой.
Я просто, извини, у меня просто фильм, и он просто такой хороший вышел. Мне просто надо...
Да?
Но я потом закончу. И потом тебе покажу.
Сына, 10-й час, но ты хотела, чтобы ты немножко русским
Да,
позанималась.
и завтра 2 раза больше позанимаюсь.
Давай чуть-чуть сейчас позанимаешься, немножко.
Я сейчас учу позанимаюсь.
Ну вот на моем компьютере посиди, да позанимайся.
Да.
Давай кушай.
Я все не буду есть.
Хорошо. У тебя творчество там, да? Да, Глеб?
Угу.
Ты фильм делаешь?
Угу.
Знаешь, что рыбка.
Он меня фует.
Туалет надо. сынок, ну-ка, сядь нормально, ешь. Ты ж не свинка. Сына, не чавкай, сядь нормально за стол, ешь.
Ага, сейчас. Тебя Али? И что?
Что ты ржешь?
У меня просто хорошая идея.
Какая?
Ну, видишь.
Ну, как у тебя много идей. Видишь, какой ты творческий.
Я закончил.
Глеб, ты когда будешь?
Я сейчас позанимаюсь, сейчас приду. Окей. Я тебе дам трейлер посмотреть.
Давай.
Стой. Ну, пока там загружается, я пока учи рут поделаю.
Угу.
Я,
Не можешь больше рисовать?
потом поддаем. Окей?
Хорошо.
Окей.
Потом это когда?
Ну зато уже загрузилось, сейчас я тебе покажу.
Давай. Вау. Блин, Глеб. Да, это будет страшно. Пришли мне трейлер. А ты его выложил?
Нет, нет еще.
А что?
Потому что еще не выложил. Это еще только трейлер.
О,
Я когда я выложу его на YouTube, ну как пример, чтобы, ну как называется, ну примера, значит, ну не сразу можно увидеть, только
крутой. Тебе надо фильмы снимать, в конкурсах участвовать. Окей?
Ну да, я хочу.
Мгм.
Окей, я все выложил на YouTube, просто там должно
На
быть.
свой канал?
Ну да, там должно загрузиться.
Долго буду.
Да. И даже если закрутится быстро, то только на 25 января можно посмотреть, потому что я так сделал, что премьера только начнется в 25-го. Ну, я могу сократить, я просто так сделал, чтобы,
Чтобы подождали, разогрелись, да?
нет, чтобы видео, больше, чтобы видео сначала загрузилось.
Мгм.
Ах, так медленно загружается. Да. Ой. извини, полшага.
Вот в Москве киношколу учат подросток снимать фильмы. Хочешь?
Ну да, конечно, я хочу. Ради иначе карантин такой же закончился. Да, пожалуйста.